Customer states they got a check engine light on with some rough running, so we're gonna go ahead and go take it on a test drive and scan some codes and watch some data and see what we got. I recognize this Jeep. So I just realized that this is actually a gal that stopped in. She had a broken washer sprayer nozzle, which was causing both the washers to not work. And I just fixed it for him out in the parking lot like pretty quickly. Told them to go ahead and stop by if they ever had any other issues, and looks like they're back for their other issues. But we got 115,138 miles on this thing. Idle feels like it's got a little rumble to it. Let's get her plugged in. I like to code scan them before I take off. Hello? OBD, are you under there? Oh, there it is. I got it. Interesting. So we've got a P0302 cylinder tube misfire. That's most likely what they're feeling and what they're talking about, and we'll probably know more once we go drive it and kind of get a feel for what's going on. But we've also got a P0299, which is a brake pedal position, accelerator pedal position incompatible. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, if they're having any sort of like acceleration or throttle issues at all. And then a P0591 speed control switch 2 performance, which I'm assuming has something to do with the throttle body as well, or possibly with the idle speed. Brake pedal switch performance on the central gateway is a stored code, not showing us current. Let's just go into our system test though and watch our misfire counter and see if this is just a straight misfire all the time on number 2. If it is, we'll see it just counting up. And yeah, it's just a straight miss all the time on number 2. So let's go drive it and see how it drives and see what the misfire feels like under acceleration, and then we'll pull it in and take a peek. Oh, and it's just missing hard now. At first, when I first fired it up, it just kind of felt like a little rumble. Now it feels like a pretty hard miss. I'm pretty much just gonna drive around the block. Yeah, it feels like we got dead misfire on number 2. So that very likely could be an ignition coil. A lot of times on ignition coils, they'll kind of sputter intermittently, but this one is just misfiring all the time. So, well, let's pull it in the shop. I'm gonna pull that number 2 spark plug, take a read on that, see what it looks like, and then we'll probably swap that plug to a different cylinder and swap the ignition coil to a different cylinder as well, separate from each other. That way we can do a little bit of swaptronics and narrow down what's causing this miss on this thing. But that's usually where I start when I'm trying to diagnose a misfire. I'm not gonna clear any codes out on this thing yet. I don't want it to reset the misfire counter, because most likely what we're gonna end up doing is I'm gonna put the ignition coil on cylinder number 1, and I'm gonna put the spark plug on cylinder number 3, and then put a known good ignition coil and known good spark plug from different cylinders onto cylinder number 2. That way we can fire this thing back up and watch our misfire counter. If the misfire moves to cylinder 1, let me go explain this under the hood actually. It'll be a lot easier to visualize under there. So basically, I'm gonna remove the ignition coil and the spark plug from number 2. I'm gonna put the spark plug on cylinder number 1. I'm gonna put the ignition coil on cylinder number 3. And then I'm gonna put a known good plug and coil on cylinder number 2. That way I can hop back in, fire it up, and watch the misfire counter. If the misfire moves over to cylinder number 1, then we know that we got a bad spark plug, which we'll probably be able to see that if that's what it is when we pull it out. But then if the misfire changes to cylinder number 3, we'll know that we got a bad ignition coil. If it stays on cylinder number 2, then we know we either have a fuel issue with an injector, potentially a vacuum leak, but it didn't feel like that, or maybe even something mechanical going on. So first step is I'm gonna get the spark plug out, and we'll also do a compression test on that cylinder while we got the plug out, just to make sure that if it is mechanical, we'll see it right away without wasting our time doing all that other stuff. All right, and I wanna be 100% sure that I don't accidentally lose track of this coil, which is the one in question. So I'm just gonna put a mark on that coil. That way we know which one was on the cylinder that was misfiring, and we don't accidentally mix it up and put it back in the same spot, which could be really confusing. I'm gonna go ahead and take all these coil bolts out first. I don't see any cracking or any sign of misfiring like on the coil boot or anything like that going on yet. Quick tip for you guys, if you're trying to get locks off, it's a lot easier just to pick them up and move them out of the way like that rather than trying to pull them sometimes. A lot of times they just break if you try to just pull on them. But if you pick them up first, they'll slide right off of there. And you can also just lift up the lock with a pick on the other side here instead of pushing on the tabs and slide them off that way too. Whatever works, but sometimes that's just a lot easier way to do it. Alright, plug is wet, it's really worn out, it's probably never been changed before. This looks like the original NGK, and the spark plug is definitely bad. So these little lines right here and all these little burn marks are called carbon tracking. And basically what's happening is, it's pretty hot honestly. Let me get a rag. Basically what's happening is the spark, instead of making it all the way through the plug, through the porcelain, and then just firing down here between the electrode and the ground strap, it's firing out the side of the spark plug and arcing against the spark tube because this porcelain is worn out and cracked. And so basically the ground is just finding the fastest or quickest way to reach ground, which is going to be through this porcelain if it's not insulated all the way down to the electrode there. But I do want to verify that that ignition coil is good, so I'm still going to go ahead and swap these, and that's also going to tell us if everything else in the cylinder is good as well. Because if we put a known good spark plug and ignition coil on this cylinder, we have no more misfires, then we know we have no mechanical issues on that cylinder, and we know we got a good fuel injector on that cylinder as well. Highly unlikely that you could have two things going on at the same time, but dude, I have seen stranger things, so verifying it is a good idea, and we're right here. It's only going to take 2 minutes to fire it up, and then we can be 100% sure on our diag and just recommend a set of spark plugs on this thing and be confident that we're not going to have any surprises afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and put this spark plug off one, which as you can see is super worn out. Right here, this gap is about twice as large as it should be. But we'll move that on to cylinder 2 because we know that one wasn't misfiring for sure. We'll go ahead and put this spark plug that was on 2 on to number 1. And to be honest, I'm a little bit suspicious of the ignition coil still because just of how that miss felt. A lot of times when you have a spark plug that's arcing through the side like that, it'll still fire okay. You know, sometimes it'll feel like more like an intermittent misfire. So I definitely want to verify whether or not this coil is working properly. So I'm going to take this known good coil that was on 3 and I'm going to put that on 2. So now we have a known good plug and a known good coil on 2. And if you're following along, we got the spark plug in question on cylinder number 1 now. We can go ahead and throw this ignition coil that's in question on cylinder number 3. Alright, let's go ahead and watch our data and see what's going on with the misfires now. Now, it's super important that you don't clear codes, because when you clear codes, on Chryslers anyway, and a lot of other vehicles too, a lot of times it takes quite a bit of driving for the misfire counter to actually start working again. So I just want to leave the codes in there and get back to our misfire counter here. Let's fire it up and see what we get. So check this out. We're getting straight misfires on cylinder number 3 now. So we do have a bad ignition coil and a bad spark plug. That cylinder number 1 is actually not misfiring at all. And that's what I meant was the spark plug, a lot of times when the spark plug's cracked like that, you'll only feel it like under heavy acceleration. So you're pulling a hill on the freeway and then it'll start misfiring. But when you get a misfire that's just a steady misfire at all times, that's more conducive to a ignition coil failing. So this one needs a new cylinder number 3 ignition coil, needs a new set of spark plugs, and usually we offer for the customer to replace all the ignition coils if they want to. It's not as big of a deal on this 4-cylinder because they're all super easy to get to. But on some vehicles, you'll have like an intake manifold that you have to remove to do the coils again. So if we fixed one coil, chances are those other coils may be on their way out as well, since they're the same age and the same amount of mileage on them. It'd be kind of silly to do one if it was underneath the intake and then have to pull it off again in a month or 2 and replace other ones as they fail and have to redo all the diagnostic process all over again. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a full inspection done on this thing. We'll get a diag note written up on it, send it over to the customer and see what they want to do.